Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Candice.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. It's a nice day here, a little bit cloudy, which we don't usually have. So, but I'm doing good. Summer's rolling in, and the winter's gone away, so it's all good.
Fun. Yeah, I'm seeing some cactus in the back. Are you in a southwestern state?
No, that's my longing cactus over there. I live near the Rocky Mountains, so I live in Calgary, Alberta. We just had the summit just an hour away. So yeah, that's where we are.
Well, I just live south of you in the southern Rocky Mountains, so
Follow the trail.
might take me a couple days to get there.
Absolutely.
So today we have author Candice MacPhie. She is the author of Back in a Year series, which is a true story. Is this completely autobiographical, or is it a little bit fictionalized?
No, there was so many good things that happened. I didn't really need any fiction. It's all real. So it was what it was like to travel as a woman in the 90s.
Amazing. So jump in, tell us about the books, the story, a little bit about your experience.
Sure. So I guess it all started when you're younger and you're growing up. My mom got sick when I was 14, and I spent my formative years looking after being a primary caregiver with my brothers and my dad. And by the time she passed away when I was 22, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna, go out there and get a job and live my life and do what I need to do. I tried that for a couple of years, but I felt just really lost and just, didn't quite wasn't quite fitting into the mold. Like, I thought I should be working. I thought I should have a job. I thought I should be doing all these sort of very sort of tactical steps to, the life that, was presented, that was the right box of a life I should have. And it just wasn't working. I just couldn't seem to, be happy. And I had so many things and I was so blessed, but I just couldn't make it work for myself. So I went on a holiday, and backpacking was always something that always interested me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to just go for 3 weeks. And I met a couple people while I was out there in my 3 weeks, and I went to Greece. And they inspired me and really challenged me to say, okay, well, if this is something you want to do, why are you, schlepping away in a life you don't like? And I thought the door was closed. And I think that was the interesting thing for me, was that I just thought that chance to travel and that chance to sort of live the way I wanted to on the road, just experience. And, I thought that was closed, but it wasn't. And that's where this series starts, in terms of, okay, I'm doing this, and all of the nerves and the sort of real kind of just anxiety, but good anxiety. When it's good and you're just thinking, okay, I know if something makes me nervous, if something just feels almost a little uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable where I'm just like, okay, no, like shut her down, but just enough to kind of get you going and to say, okay, this is right for me. This is the right thing. So that's what this series is. And when I left home, I told my family I'd be back in a year. And I said, I'll be back in a year, like, no worries. And they all kind of looked at each other and went, oh, about that. And yeah, and I just had my backpack and I traveled around the world. And when I was traveling, I took journals and I took pictures with my 35mm camera. So I have some photographs to look back on, and I have my journals. So that's really my guide in terms of, you know, the stories, because all of the crazy people that you meet and the experiences that you have, I was able to go back and go, okay, they were there. Yeah, so when I first started writing, I thought, okay, here we go. It's gonna be one book. And by the time I had sort of put all the words together and thought, okay, what's my goal? I want the reader to really understand what it was like at that particular time, what it was like to travel as a woman. I want them to understand what it was like just to be on the road in general, you know, schlepping your backpack, no phone in your hand to go, I'll stay here. You know, you had to, you know, wander from one place to another. And a lot of times you didn't end up with great choices or great experiences. So I wanted the reader to be sweaty. I wanted you to be uncomfortable. I wanted you to laugh. I wanted you to cringe. And so it took a bit more space than I had originally anticipated, which is where it blew out into 5 books. So each book covers a different geographical section of this around the world adventure. And there you go.
Super fun. Did you put some of the images from your treks in the books?
Yeah, you know, I had thought about that and I have them all on my website. So each book, there is some images on the websites. And I do have maps. It's kind of a little bit inspired by Indiana Jones. I don't know if you love the beginning where he's kind of the dun, 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 and the plane's going over the map, you know. So I wanted to have a map like that where folks could sort of follow the journey along and say, okay, this was a taxi, this was a boat, this was a train, plane, whatever it was. So I have a map in terms of how you can follow it, and but not pictures on the website.
Super fun. Were you a writer before this point? Did you have any like education in writing?
No, 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 no. So I did this trip and just sort of plunked all my thoughts in the journals. So by the time I had opened up the journals thinking these are going to be awesome, they weren't awesome. They were definitely held the stories and the adventures, but far from awesome. Let's just put it that way. So I was not a writer. After I completed this trip, I went back on the trajectory that I thought I should be doing again and got a job, worked in the corporate world for 20 years and I am a proficient PowerPointer and presenter, PowerPointer, team leader, but writing was all so new for me. So around just before COVID happened, I kind of looked at my life and looked at my family and went, okay, I have 3 kids, which is awesome. And someone else is essentially raising them because I had help. I had, you know, I had all sorts. I was working so many hours, so busy, and they were just growing up so fast. And I thought, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't have kids for other people to raise them, which is what I was doing. And I just felt like my life had kind of spun into this space where, I was in that same space again, where I thought, you know, this isn't the life I want. This isn't what I wanted to do. So I was fortunate to evaluate finances and look at things and go, okay, I can leave my job if we dump all of the extra stuff. And yeah, so I, at that point, thought, okay, it's time, you know? So I sat down at my computer, got my little fingers out, way, and then got as far as I could, right? In terms of writing, and you're like, okay, this is so good. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. So I got lots of help. At that point, I think another sort of hurdle was finding the right person to help me to say, okay, I see what you're trying to do here, but what we need is, you know, all the things I needed to do in terms of learn to take these series of events, if you will, and turn them into a cohesive story with a beginning, a middle, and end. So the reader would have an enjoyable trip and you could read each book, although there's 5, but you can read each book and still go, okay, I'm feeling satisfied. I've read this book and I'm left satisfied. I'm not left hanging. Yes, the adventure does continue, but you're not like, it's not an icky cliffhanger or anything. There's full awareness that there's more to come. Should you choose to go on or not is really up to you. And you could pick up just one of the books and say, you know what, I'm really interested in the Middle East. I'll read book 3, for example. And you could do that too. So that was my goal, was to deliver that kind of experience to the reader. So it took me a while to start to wrap my head around how to do it, and in order to get the right help to get there. And it was perseverance. And you know what? It was fun. I hadn't had feedback on my work in so long, because when I worked in the corporate world, I was really good at what I did. I had constant reviews like, nice job. And I'd be waiting like, okay, what can I improve? Tell me what, but nothing. I didn't, I stopped growing, in terms of as a professional. And this was such a rich experience because I had so much to learn, and I still learn every day, and I love it.
That's amazing. Your story is amazing. I am such in awe of you, because when my life was, when it didn't feel right for me to just do the cookie cutter thing, yeah, I didn't go backpacking. I decided to develop a mental illness and had like, yeah, so it took me a couple years to come back from that. But very much like you, I wrote about that experience as an older adult, and I ended up fictionalizing it, but had that huge manuscript of like, okay, I'm dumping this on someone. What do you think? And they were like, hmm. So I definitely know that feeling, and know that like huge, enormous project. They're like, what do I do now? So
Yeah. And, it was just that desire, right? That desire to say, okay, I'm really like, I'm turning this into something. Like this is gonna be so, like, I am making this the best effort. And I think my ego got in the way a little bit in terms of my tenacity. So I'll explain that. Was I didn't want to put my name on a piece of crap. I just thought, you know what? I'm gonna people are going to read this, and I don't want someone to go, oh, it was just like that, like, could have read something else and been more, I thought, no, 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 I am going to do the best I can and present the best, my best work, and say, here it is, and it was an interesting shift from the corporate world, because so many times you're like, okay, we're 80%, 85. Okay, that's good. We'll roll with it. Like, that's going to work. We know there's a few things we don't know, so we'll be ready with those kind of in the back pocket kind of thing. But this striving for this excellence it was also a new area too, because I hadn't had, like, I always wanted to do good work when I was working, but then, if you go way too far, it's just a waste of time. But with writing, I don't think going way too far is a waste of time. The more time you edit, the smoother the ride, right? And the smoother the experience for the reader, and the easier they can get through it. And it's just, there's so much benefits to that tenacity and that real rigor in terms of how you approach editing. So
interesting. Yeah, I believe that too. I started out technical writing, and then my professor was always, okay, well, we've got this deadline. It's going to be as good as we can get it by the deadline, and then you turn it on and you move on, right? But when you're writing your own work, you can, I mean, if you are setting your own schedule, you can like decide, okay, this is going to be as perfect as I can get it, and then I'm going to release it to the world.
absolutely, there gets to a time where you're like, okay, I'm there, and you'll know when you're there. But I found that whole process completely fascinating. It was just so wonderful to be able to learn again. And then what a thrill it is, and what a neat experience to be able to say I was able to learn again. And what an interesting time too, in terms of, if I reflect on when I first left in the first place and why I first left, I was just low, and just completely in the dumps, and just did not know how to get out. I was so low, and I tried so many things, and nothing was really, I just couldn't seem to mobilize. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try this and see if it works. And when I first left home, I had a return ticket for a month later, and I had this 2-year visa, and I had all these things. And when I checked into England, because where I went first, lady's like, why is your ticket like to return. And I didn't say, because if I wimp out and need to go home, thought, it was like my ultimate safety net. I thought, if this just blows up in my face and I just land or splat, I can go home. But I desperately didn't want that to happen, and thought, okay, no, I'm gonna persevere. But there was definitely some trying days too. So
I can imagine. So you said you went back to the corporate world. Did you go back to a similar position, or did you find a position that more aligned with what you felt you needed and fed your soul a little bit more?
yeah, it's funny. I've always been a pantser in everything I do in terms of writing and life and, jobs. And I traveled, I started in London. Well, I started in Canada, went to London, traveled around the world, back in London again is where I ended up. And then I just wanted to stay for a while. So I got a job, a temporary job. And then they offered me a full-time job. And I thought, okay, but I said, you have to sponsor me. And they said, okay, we can sponsor you to stay. And then I don't know, I had another opportunity opened up, and they said, oh, you can go work in Switzerland, or you can take over this maternity cover doing this random job in HR. And I thought, man, I'll give the maternity cover a go. I don't really want to go to Switzerland. And I loved it. I loved every bit about it. And it was managing IT systems in HR. I loved it. Weird. Just thought it was awesome. Just the whole thing. I thought I worked in marketing before, but this was just a completely different space. And then I continued along that line and just kept working in HR, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for a long time until I stopped liking it, until it stopped being, getting out of bed was more difficult than it was before. Because before, I would get up and I'd be like in the shower, going, okay, I've got this to solve today and this to solve today. And oh, I've got to talk to that person. And I plan my day, and it was just all exciting, right? I was energized. And then it just wasn't there anymore. And I just fell out of it. And I thought, well, I could look for something different, or I could really just try my hand at this writing, which I've always wanted to do.
Fun. So how old were you when on your backpacking trip?
I was really old. At the time, I was 25, 26. So it was old for backpacking. Like, that's why I thought the doors had closed, because most backpackers are gap years, like 18, 19. So when you're that young, the 5 years is a lot, right? You're like, oh, you're over the hill. So yeah, I did not think this was going to be an opportunity for me, just because I thought I was too old. But I guess, you're never too old. So that's something you learn as well.
Right. Yeah. I had a friend who backpacked the Appalachian Trail, and I guess maybe she was 23. We were in graduate school. So, but yeah, I started graduate school late too, so I know to be a late bloomer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you consider the book to be, what age group do you think most gravitates towards the book? Or is it a young adult book or an adult book, or how do you?
Yeah. So I a couple of different markets for this book, and I feel like it's a young adult book and an older book. So and I can explain myself in terms of the younger folks, they can relate to it because they're going through the same things. There's a lot of commonalities in terms of, my path led me to where I was 25 and sort of down in the dumps and didn't know what I wanted to do. But I don't think that's a unique experience for anybody who's 25. It's just that my path was my path. You might take any path, but kind of we're all in the same bucket. And if you're 25 and know what you want to do, I'm giving you 2 thumbs up, or if I could give more, I would. So I find that the folks that age really enjoy it as well. So that 18 to 30 or 35-ish. And then there's the maybe over 40s up, because you can remember the 90s, you can think about the 90s, you can relate to the experiences in terms of what it was like to live in that time. A lot of people did. It was common to travel back then. Not everybody did it, But, you know, a lot of people dabbled in different kinds of traveling. So it kind of serves up memories and stories. And yeah, I've been surprised at the sort of folks. I'm 50. My husband and that this I have to make sure 54. And if I so my age plus or minus, you know, those folks and then the younger folks.
Okay, neat. And is the content any like adult content, or somebody that's 16 could pick up the book, for instance?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that in terms
Okay.
there's some experiences in there that are not very nice. I have not left anything out there in terms of there was a lot of harassment, there was abuse, there was sort of sexual content. So it's all in there. And there's not, so I don't let my kids read it until
Okay. Till they get to be that 18 to 20-year-old. This
Yeah.
is amazing learning about your books. I think I saw Hello, I Am Here was just released. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. That was just released about a month ago. And that starts off in Prague and travels to Oktoberfest, does this really weird sailing trip in the Netherlands. And the lion's share, 2/3 of the book is in the Middle East. So it travels through Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. And interesting times back then, traveling as a woman and what it was like, just the experiences. I don't know how much has actually changed because they're wonderful sort of, I don't know if they're time boxed or what, but there's probably a few more modern conveniences, but I would hope the magic of that place is still there. And my goal was really just to sort of dump you in that experience, that dusty, sort of really gritty experience of traveling in the Middle East.
Yeah, so we're the same age. So I was computing. I was like, okay, that was just after the Gulf War, a few years after the Gulf War. So
Yeah.
not in that
Yeah.
tumultuous of a time, maybe.
It was a year after they had the murders at the temple in Egypt, the Hatshepsut temple, and it was almost a year to the day. And I actually met someone when I was going from Amsterdam to Amman who was working for the United Nations and was going to Baghdad to look for weapons of mass destruction. So
Oh,
it was right around that time in terms of that experience. So it wasn't the other thing too, right, to remember is that there's no English newspapers. Anytime you do get on the internet, you're not spending your time, well, I wasn't looking for current events. I was quickly trying to email someone while the computer whirred along. So there was this blissful unawareness that I had around the political climate, unless I called home and my dad was like, "Oh my God, this is happening."
right. Well, that kind of maybe helped create that space that you needed to heal, recover, kind of just be out in the world as a member of society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fine. And it sounds like you said it's a 5-book series, so there's 2 more books to come out, correct?
Yes.
And how fast are you releasing those?
Yeah, not as fast as I'd like. I think there's definitely personal things that get in the way. So my next book is about 8 months or so, and I am looking at them almost like days of the week. So go through Wednesday. So once you get through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are always really good. So I'm not saying the books are like that, but in terms of just the writing thing, it was really fun to get through the third one and go, we cracked it now. Yeah, finish the other two. So
Going downhill. And I
yeah,
did see on your website you leave books in places for people to find.
I do. I just had someone from Australia DM me the other day. She found it in Bali and I had left it in New Zealand 2 years ago. So it was left in Wahiki Island north of Auckland, and then it went to Bali somehow. And then she found it in Bali and dropped it in Adelaide in Australia at a little bookstore. And then I had a guy text me the other day, or DM, sorry, and he found it in Rome and then brought it to Budapest. So yeah, it's really fun. I anybody who's going on holiday, I'm like, here's a book, just send me. And having this game, like one book, not so bad. Folks will drop it off in different places, or if we're going anywhere, we drop them as well. It's just kind of a fun thing to do because it is a travel book. So it's kind of neat to watch them move around the world.
That is really fun. I was likening it to Flat Stanley. I don't know if your kids ever read the Flat Stanley books, but so Flat Stanley was this boy who the bookcase dropped on him and he was flat. So his parents would just fold him up in a suitcase and send him different places in the world. So there was one summer vacation, my kids were like 3rd grade, and their project for school was to take a picture of Flat Stanley everywhere they went. So that was like our whole summer, everywhere we were, we had to take a picture of Flat Stanley. So
fun. That's just like when they used to do the gnome as well. And people used to take gnomes on holiday, steal someone's garden gnome and take pictures of the garden gnome on holiday. But that sounds really good. That sounds, yeah. So Flat Stanley, yeah, that's it. So they are definitely getting around like Flat Stanley.
well, Candice, tell everyone where we can find you and your books.
Absolutely. My books are on Amazon and Kobo. I have them on Kindle Unlimited. So if anyone's a big reader and just likes to sort of dabble, my goal is for folks just to enjoy, right? They're good summer reads and just kick back and giggle and cringe and do all of it. And if you're having trouble from a link perspective, my website's really good too. It's CandiceMacPhie.com. And there's links to where you can buy all the books and pictures and information about books as well.
Yes, I love seeing the list of where all the books were found. That was really cool.
Yeah, they're really good.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we'll have you back when you release your next book.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. Thank you, Trisha.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Trisha Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.